My name's Kevin. I'm 27, and up until about 2 years ago, I still held out hope that my family would eventually come around and see me as more than the convenient scapegoat they molded me into. But people don't change just because you hope they will. Sometimes they double down. And when they do, all that's left is for you to stop hoping and start remembering who you are. I grew up as the oldest of three. Then came Rachel, the golden child, and Eric, the accidental caboose who was too young to matter in any of the family politics. From the outside, it probably looked like we were close. Family holiday photos, polite comments on Facebook, the usual digital facade. But behind the scenes, I was the one expected to clean up everyone's messes. When Rachel crashed her car in college, I was the one who drained my savings to help her keep it quiet so she wouldn't lose her internship. When mom forgot to pay the electric bill 3 months in a row and tried to blame it on Eric playing video games, I quietly covered it. No, thank you. Just a head tilt and a vague. Well, that's what you're supposed to do for family, right? I kept doing it for years. Every favor, every dollar, every piece of emotional labor, I gave it without a fight. I thought that maybe, just maybe, if I kept showing up, they'd finally see me as someone they could be proud of. That illusion shattered last November on what should have been a normal afternoon. Rachel had just gotten engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Brandon. We weren't close, but he always struck me as one of those harmlessly bland types. He wore boat shoes to Thanksgiving and said things like, "Killer spread, Mrs. C." Still, I was genuinely happy for her. I thought this might be the moment we all turned a corner. I texted her congratulations, offered to help however I could, and even volunteered to handle their honeymoon costs as a wedding gift. She responded with a half-hearted THX, and I didn't think much of it. Then, 2 weeks ago, I got a call from mom while I was wrapping up work. I still don't know if she meant to let the venom in her voice slip through, or if she genuinely didn't care that I heard it. "Don't even think about showing up to the wedding," she snapped before I could say hello. "Rachel's finally going to have the perfect day she deserves, and we're not going to let you ruin it." I was quiet for a second, trying to figure out what she was talking about. I wasn't planning on making a speech or doing anything flashy. I was just going to show up, clap at the right moments, maybe hug a few people. "Ruin it how?" I asked slowly. Her voice dropped into that sickly sweet tone she always used when she wanted to disguise something cruel. "Kevin, you've never exactly looked the part. You know that, right? You always dress like you're going to a job interview, and not a good one. And the way you hover around? It's off-putting. Rachel doesn't want you in the photos. She asked me to tell you, and frankly, I agree." I couldn't breathe for a second. It felt like my ears were ringing. All the years I'd bent over backward for them, all the effort to be supportive, and now I was being told I didn't even deserve a seat at the wedding. That I'd somehow ruined their perfect little family image by simply existing in the background. I could hear Rachel's voice in the background too, light, dismissive, laughing like this whole thing was some kind of inside joke. "Tell him he can send a gift though," she called out. "He's still good for that." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell or defend myself. I just smiled. It was the same smile I used to give my boss when he tried to dump his work on me. The one that says, "You have no idea what I'm about to do." "Sure," I said, my tone light. "I understand." She hung up without another word. I opened my laptop, logged into the joint account I'd set up for the honeymoon gift, and reversed the transfer. $4,200, back into my pocket in 5 seconds. I took a screenshot of the reversal and texted it to mom with a simple caption. I wouldn't want to ruin anything. No reply, but I know she saw it. She always reads messages obsessively. Now here's the part they really don't know. Last year, I quietly invested in a chain of mid-tier venues that were struggling post-pandemic. One of them happened to be the exact location Rachel bragged about booking on Instagram, Lakeview Ridge, the one with the big white gazebo and overpriced brunch menu. The moment I recognized it in her post, I double-checked my emails. Yup, it was under our portfolio. Not only did I partially own it, I had final sign-off power on all large events held there, including, say, weddings. At first, I considered pulling the plug immediately, just canceling the booking, watching them scramble. But that felt too easy, too quick. They wouldn't feel it. They wouldn't understand it. I wanted them to stew in their own smugness a little longer. I wanted them to post their countdown stories, their dress fittings, their seating chart arguments. I wanted them to laugh behind my back just a few more times. So instead, I've been watching, patiently, waiting. I made a few quiet calls to the event coordinator at Lakeview Ridge, asking to be notified if there were any concerns or issues with the Carsons' wedding reservation. I reviewed the contract. And let me tell you, it's airtight, except for one tiny clause buried deep in the fine print. Full payment is required 10 days before the event, or the booking is considered forfeited. Not delayed, not postponed, forfeited. The wedding is in 12 days. And as of this morning, no final payment has been submitted. I didn't need to do anything yet. Just wait. Watch. Let them keep treating me like a footnote, like a burden they'd rather crop out of the pictures. Let them keep smiling for the camera, completely unaware that the floor they're standing on was laid by the one person they deemed unworthy of standing beside them. It was amazing how quickly people forgot where their money came from once it was no longer being handed to them in silence. I hadn't heard a single word from Rachel or my mom since that phone call. Not even a half-hearted, maybe you could come to the rehearsal dinner, as a peace offering. Nothing. Just silence and smugness. But that's the thing about silence. It lets you hear everything they don't say out loud. I spent the next few days doing something I hadn't done in a long time, living my life without them. I hit the gym again, cleaned up my apartment, took myself out to dinner. For once, my phone wasn't blowing up with requests for favors or emergency money transfers. It was peaceful, quiet in the kind of way that feels earned, like the calm before a controlled storm. But then, 5 days before the wedding, I got a notification from the venue's coordinator, Amy. She's been with Lakeview Ridge for years and has seen more family meltdowns than a therapist. She's sharp, composed, and a little too observant for her own good. Her message was short and polite, but the subtext was crystal clear. Hey Kevin, just checking in. The Carson party still hasn't submitted the final payment. I've sent 2 reminders with no reply. Let me know how you want to handle it, since it's close to the deadline. I called her back that afternoon, and we talked through it. I kept my tone casual, professional. If it's not paid by the deadline, we'll consider the booking void per policy. Just follow the contract. Amy hesitated. You sure? I mean, they're really banking on this thing. They've got like 15 vendors scheduled. A whole live string quartet. And there's talk of releasing doves during the vows. I smiled faintly. Doves? Huh? Classy. She laughed quietly. Okay. I'll follow protocol. Deadline's in 2 days. Now, I could have warned them. I could have texted Rachel a simple, hey, just so you know, your payment's late. But I didn't. Because they made it clear I wasn't family. Not important enough to stand in a photo. Not important enough to warrant a chair. Just a walking wallet with a pulse. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to interfere. I was going to let the natural consequences of their carelessness do all the work for me. On the morning of the deadline, I took the day off work and treated myself to a good breakfast, eggs, coffee, extra crispy bacon. I checked my email around noon. Still nothing. No payment. No message. No Hail Mary, oh my God, we forgot. Just radio silence. That night, Amy marked the booking as canceled in our system. At 7:18 p.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, another call. Same number. I finally picked up. Hi, is this Kevin? This is Teresa. I'm Rachel's wedding planner. I nearly laughed. Of course it was. Yes, I said, keeping my voice neutral. So, we're just trying to sort out a minor issue with the venue. I understand there was some kind of system error and the final payment didn't go through. Probably a glitch with our account. But we were hoping to confirm everything is still on track for Saturday. I leaned back in my chair, glanced at the ceiling. No system error. The payment deadline passed last night. The booking's been released. Silence. I could hear her breathing, and in the background, the muffled sound of someone arguing. Then her voice returned, thin and nervous. But surely you can make an exception, right? I mean, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. The bride's already got her gown. Guests are flying in. Teresa, I interrupted gently, I understand. But the contract is the contract. If they wanted it locked in, they should have paid on time. We've been more than generous with reminders. She stammered a bit before trailing off with a shaky, I'll talk to Rachel. The next call came less than an hour later. This time it was Mom. Kevin, she barked. No greeting. What is going on with the venue? Rachel is in tears. They said the booking was canceled because of you. I raised an eyebrow. Me? I didn't cancel anything. The deadline passed. I just happened to know the coordinator. You knew and you didn't say anything. You let this happen? I let what happen? You mean I didn't step in and cover for your mistake again? There was a beat of silence. Then her voice turned cold. Do you really hate your sister that much? No, I said slowly, clearly. I just finally decided to stop letting you all treat me like I'm disposable. You said I'd ruin the photos. So I took myself out of the picture. You always have to make it about you, she spat. No, I said again, quieter this time. You did. You made it about me the second you decided I wasn't worth a chair at your perfect wedding. I'm just following your lead. She hung up without another word. That night, I got a text from Rachel. No greeting. No emoji. Just this. You seriously couldn't have warned us? And then, a second later, wow. You're a bitter little man. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because the next part? That was entirely in my hands now. The venue was gone. Their dream wedding had no foundation. Vendors were pulling out. Doves were staying caged. And they still had no idea just how deep this rabbit hole went. Because while they were scrambling to find a last-minute location, I was sitting on a little secret. They thought the worst had already happened. They didn't realize that I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The following morning, I woke up to a dozen new texts and 3 missed calls, 2 from Rachel, 1 from Brandon. The text ranged from thinly veiled guilt trips, "This is still family, Kevin. No matter what happened," to flat-out insults, "I can't believe you're so petty you'd sabotage your own sister's wedding." I read them all over coffee, scrolled through without reacting. They didn't know the half of it. See, Rachel and Brandon had spent the last year parading this wedding around like it was some royal event. Magazine-style engagement photos, a custom website with a countdown, a color palette with 4 shades of soft champagne. The venue wasn't just a pretty location, it was the entire brand. Lakeview Ridge was the backdrop in every one of their online posts, their Pinterest board. Even the RSVP envelopes had a watercolor painting of the gazebo. It was a curated fantasy, and they'd built it on borrowed money and other people's generosity, including mine. They hadn't told anyone I was paying for the honeymoon. They took the money, smiled for Instagram, and acted like it was just something Brandon pulled out of thin air. The worst part? I was proud of them. I actually wanted them to have a beautiful start. But apparently, the ugly brother didn't fit the theme. And now, with 4 days to go, the clock was ticking. They were scrambling to find a new venue, and I knew how that process looked from the inside. Nothing decent was available at that short notice, especially not one that could accommodate the number of guests they were expecting. Even if they found a backup, everything from their floral arrangements to their ceremony setup would have to be redone. And the real kicker? They bragged for months about the custom package they negotiated at Lakeview Ridge. What they didn't know was that the coordinator, Amy, gave them that rate because I told her to. I wanted to gift it without the awkwardness. Now that the booking was void, that rate was gone. If they did manage to rebook, it would cost them double if we let them back in at all. I got another call that afternoon, this time from Brandon. Hey, Kevin. Listen, I know there's been some tension, but I wanted to clear the air, man to man. I said nothing, letting him twist in the silence. He cleared his throat. Look, Rachel's been really upset. This wedding, it means a lot to her. To both of us. I'm sure we can figure something out, right? Like, you have connections at the venue. You could pull a few strings. Get us back in. Brandon, I said calmly, did you know I was the one paying for your honeymoon? He was quiet for a second. What? The honeymoon. The resort package you two posted about. The one with the villa and the private chef. That was me. $4,200. I sent it 2 months ago. No, I didn't know that. Of course you didn't, I said. Because your fiancée didn't want you to. She told me I'd ruin the photos. That she didn't want me there. So I took back the honeymoon. And now, you're asking me to step in and rescue the wedding. Another pause. I imagined him sitting there, staring at the wall like a kid realizing he hadn't done the homework. I'm not trying to take sides, he said, his voice quieter. But I don't think you understand how stressed Rachel is. This is her day. I almost laughed. Oh, I understand. I just don't care anymore. Click. 3 hours later, I got an email from Amy with the subject line, "Update on Carson's." I opened it. In short, Rachel had called the venue, sobbing. Claimed she was blindsided by the cancellation, that it was unfair and completely unethical. She demanded to speak to the owner directly. Amy asked if I wanted to respond personally. I told her, not yet. Instead, I did something better. I logged into the venue's website backend and added a small update to their homepage. Please note, Lakeview Ridge is proud to host a private corporate event on April 27th. No wedding bookings will be honored on this date. That was their wedding day. I didn't use their names. I didn't have to. Anyone looking for a last-minute rebooking would see it. Every other venue in the area would assume we were booked solid. I had just quietly turned off the lights on every backup plan they had. That night, my aunt messaged me. Aunt Claire texted, "Hi, sweetheart. Can we talk?" Rachel's devastated. "Your mom is beside herself." I stared at it for a while. I replied, "She said I'd ruin her photos." I took that seriously. She left me on read. The next morning, the group chat lit up. Not mine, theirs. My cousin forwarded me screenshots. My mom was furious. Blaming me. Blaming Amy. Blaming Mercury in retrograde, for all I know. She ranted about how this wasn't how family treated each other, how she'd bent over backwards to include me. Rachel chimed in with a gem. "He's been jealous since high school. I always knew he'd find a way to make it about him." Jealous. That word hit like a slap and a punch wrapped in silk. Jealous of what? The curated spotlight she lived under? The endless stream of fake compliments and whispered betrayals? I had built everything I owned by working quietly while they posed for pictures. I gave without asking for credit. And now, apparently, I was bitter for not letting them set me on fire one more time. So I made a choice. I forwarded everything to Amy and said, "You can respond now. Tell them the owner reviewed the situation and denied the rebooking, per policy." Then I picked up the phone and made one more call. A friend of mine named Carter runs a high-end catering company downtown. He owed me a favor. I asked him for a little something for Saturday. Nothing big. Just a modest corporate luncheon. 10 people. Same day, same time. Same venue. He laughed. "You want me to book the place out on their wedding day?" "Not just book it," I said. "I want photos. Instagram. The works. Tag the venue. Hashtag the event. Make it look like the best catered celebration of the year." He was quiet for a second. "Damn, Kevin. You're really doing this." I smiled. "They asked me not to show up to the wedding. So I won't." But that didn't mean I wouldn't leave my mark. Saturday arrived with the kind of weather brides pray for: crisp air, not a cloud in sight, soft sunlight filtering through early spring leaves. The lake at Lakeview Ridge was still, reflective like glass, and the white gazebo gleamed against a backdrop of budding cherry blossoms. It was perfect. Idyllic. And not at all what Rachel was expecting. I got up early that morning, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to savor every minute. I took my time showering, brewed the good coffee, even ironed my shirt. Not to wear, just to feel a little sharper. Then I sat by the window, phone in hand, watching the chaos unfold in real time. The first post came from a distant cousin, Rachel's college roommate. A confused selfie in her car. "Is the venue closed? Just got here and no one's answering the gate. Please tell me I'm not the only one who didn't get a cancellation notice." I sipped my coffee, refreshed the tag. More followed. Bridesmaids in full makeup, standing outside the locked gate with their arms crossed. Groomsmen in rental tuxedos, pacing beside parked cars. A flower girl asleep in someone's back seat, her tiara sliding off. They hadn't told anyone. That was the part one hadn't expected. I figured Rachel or my mother would have done damage control, at least sent out a mass text. But no. They were so convinced everything would work out, so sure someone, me, would swoop in to save them at the last second, that they hadn't even warned their guests. Entitlement turned to paralysis. Then came the post that made me laugh out loud. Lakeview Ridge, hosting a beautiful lakeside luncheon for a special team today. Nothing like a little sun, spring air, and great food to celebrate big wins. Hashtag private event, hashtag booked out, hashtag corporate luxury. 3 long tables draped in white. Crystal glassware. Waiters in black vests. A champagne pyramid. In the background, barely visible, but unmistakable, was Rachel's custom floral arch, now repurposed for our luncheon's dessert bar. The sign she had painted by an Etsy artist, "Forever Starts Here," was flipped and relettered by Carter's team to say, "Success starts here." I wish I could have seen her face. Around noon, I got a call from Amy. I picked up immediately. "Kevin," she said, barely containing a chuckle. "We have guests trying to climb the side gate." I laughed. "Please tell me that's a joke." "Nope. One of the groomsmen swears he knows someone inside." I told them the property is under private booking and that security has been notified. "They bring the doves?" "Oh, yes. 2 handlers and a crate. They're sitting on the curb looking very confused." I chuckled again, slower this time. "You've been amazing, Amy." "Really? I owe you big for this." "You don't owe me anything," she said. "This is the best Saturday shift I've had in years." At 2:41 p.m., the inevitable happened. My mom called. I let it ring. Then Rachel. Then Brandon. Then my aunt. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I opened the group text, the one I was still silently in, even though they'd stopped tagging me months ago, and typed exactly 2 words: "You're welcome." Then I left the chat. That night, I heard from Eric, my younger brother, the only one in the family who'd ever treated me like an actual person. He wasn't at the wedding. He called me the day after I pulled the honeymoon fund, said, "If they're going to act like you don't exist, I'm not pretending they're saints." He stayed quiet, respectful, but I could hear in his voice he'd had enough, too. His message was short. "Eric, I saw the posts. I don't even know what to say, but I'm proud of you." They needed to be humbled. "I'll call tomorrow." And for once, I felt it. Not just pride, not just relief, closure. Because here's the thing. People like Rachel, like my mother, they build their world on optics, on appearances, the seating charts, the dress fittings, the stories they'll tell over a drink in 5 years. What I gave them wasn't just a ruined wedding. It was a shattered illusion. No one would remember how stunning her dress was. They'd remember standing outside a locked venue in heels for 2 hours. They'd remember the doves that never flew, the brunch that was served to a corporate team while the wedding guests stood in the parking lot, the whispered questions: why didn't they pay? Didn't they have help? And eventually, someone would point out that maybe, just maybe, Rachel wasn't the victim. Maybe the brother she tried to erase had simply said enough. 2 days later, my mother showed up at my door. She didn't knock. She pounded. I waited a minute, then opened it slowly. She looked exhausted. Her mascara had dried into the wrinkles beneath her eyes. Her blazer was wrinkled, her posture hunched. But her tone? Still sharp. "You think you proved something?" she hissed. "No," I said calmly. "I know I did. You humiliated your sister." I looked at her for a long time. "She humiliated me. You did too. For years. You just thought I'd keep taking it. That I'd always show up, clean up, and keep quiet. Not anymore." She stepped forward like she wanted to argue, like she had a speech prepared. But I didn't give her the space. I bought the venue. I paid for the honeymoon. I supported this family when no one else did. And you erased me for optics. So this time, you got erased." She stood there, trembling. But she didn't say anything else. Finally, I added, "You can tell Rachel I'm not angry. I'm free. That's a better gift than anything on her registry." And I shut the door. A month passed. Then 2. I didn't hear from them. Eric and I grabbed dinner twice a week now. We talked about work, about life. Sometimes, we even laughed about the great wedding disaster of the year. I'd gotten a few sly messages from people who had been at the event, congratulating me without really saying what they were congratulating me for. And that was enough. I didn't need a parade. I didn't need a public moment. I had peace. I had power. And for the first time in years, I had a family that I chose, not the one that tried to write me out of their perfect picture. So I took the frame, and I burned it.